Well, it did take a few months to figure that out, maybe 3 to 6 months to figure exactly who the ideal customer was. Now, when we started as a customer service tool, the one thing I would tell early entrepreneurs is you have to pivot quickly, right? When you see something, make a pivot quickly. But we started off as a customer service tool, and we realized that companies really cared about customer service, but they were not willing to spend money on customer service. Now, if you could bring them a revenue tool, they were much more likely to spend money. So we started to realize that in those 6 months, because of the background of being a franchisor and in the franchise industry, we did target some franchise brands, and we hit it big with one brand that had multiple locations, all across the country. We had a few advocates start using our product, and when I mean advocate, meaning they liked it, they were early adopters, and they started telling their other franchise owners that looked up to them as an experienced franchise owner, and that really kicked it off for us. In the early days, I was spending a lot of time trying to raise money, and everyone I would speak to about raising money, we're in the Southeast, that's not a huge hub of that, venture capital and that sort of thing. Most people would tell me not to do it. And any way that you cannot, so I would hear that over and over again, and I was failing miserably at raising money.
Not to do what, Brian? Not to raise money or not to build a business?
Not to take the money. If there's any way that we could do it without taking on investors, do it, and they had a whole list of reasons. And at that point in time, we're just driving credit card up. I had an initial investment in it that we were using. And, at some point we started to question that. Well, we might need money, but luckily the business started producing revenue, and it started producing a lot of revenue. And, by the end of the first year, we're like, hey, we got a chance at doing this without investors.
So I want to, this franchise business that you landed, and that helped you figure out, an opportunity. I think what many people expect to happen is that you sit down. It goes back to your quote earlier, actually, that you sit down in a room with the founders and you strategize and you research and you break it down and say, this is the target customer we need to go after for X, Y reason, whatever reason. In reality, what it sounds like happened with you was you were selling to everybody, sold to one particular type of business, realized that this was the type of business that needed your product the most, and then very quickly figured out how to pivot and double down just on that target customer. Is that fair?
That's a fair statement, yes. And we also learned, their sales cycles for these SMBs and home service businesses was a day or a week, where in the beginning we were targeting, large customer service brands, maybe hotels or colleges that were using it. And, their sales cycles were months upon months. So, that's another important thing. Think about the sales cycle of the customer that you're targeting. If your runway is, 6 months and you're targeting folks that's sales cycle are 6 months to a year, that's a problem.
Yeah. So you've finally figured out a target customer that needs your product the most. Can you help our listeners understand, how did things change once you made that decision that this is the target customer we're going to focus on? We're not going to try and sell to everybody. This is where we think is the opportunity. This is the type of customer that needs our product the most. How did things change in terms of how you had more focus on the product or on your sales efforts? I think what I want to try and understand is, did picking that target customer help you and everybody else on the team to get hyper-focused on what they needed to do, what type of problems they needed to solve, which type of customer they needed to find?
Yeah, without question, because those are the people that would talk to us, right? I mean, we were having conversations, they were using our product, and I prided myself in talking and doing demos and talking with customers as the CEO. And today, 10 years almost into it, at 15 million, I've done 5 demos today with customers. So that's the core of who we are. We have a sales team we have like 16 people on staff, but I still do demos every day because I get to hear that direct feedback. But that happened, that laser focus may have been unintentional because they were the only ones that were talking to us.
Yeah, exactly.
But they were talking to us, telling us what they needed, and it would make sense. If we could only do this, if we could have an out-of-office responder, we wouldn't have to worry about text after hours. Just so many little features over time that we developed specifically for them, but ended up being used in almost every industry we serve. But that laser focus, whether it was intentional or unintentional, really helped out.
So I think it's awesome, given the size of the business that you are today, that you as the CEO is still not only doing demos, but you just did 5 demos today. What were you doing in the early days? Were you also going out and doing a bunch of demos, or was it basically mostly in sales mode you were having these conversations, or were you just trying to find potential customers and just start a conversation to understand how they ran their business and what they were doing, regardless? Maybe you weren't even going to go and pitch the product at that point. So I'm curious in terms of what you were doing in those early days. The fact that you still do it today and you talk daily to customers means it's something naturally, obviously you find it important, but it's something that's wired into your DNA. So if there's a founder out there who's in the earlier stages, maybe in the first year, knows they need to go out and talk to customers, but maybe just feels like, I don't know, it's a difficult thing to do, or assumes that it's all about, talking to customer means selling my product. Tell us what you were doing and what maybe people can learn from that.
So, that's a broad question because in the beginning, we thought we were going to sell this door to door. And that did not work very well. We just thought it was, hey, everyone could use this. Communications is a problem. We had those 4 or 5 college kids that were going door to door, usually getting ran out of most places. Demos was not in our mind at all. Then it turned to phone calls and trying to have conversations. I mean, this was honestly before 2014. I think Zoom was just getting going. All of the demo platforms, I remember trying to find one that didn't require you to download software, because you didn't want to do a demo if you had to download software on your computer. So I remember we found one, it would work half the time it would not work. So it was mostly just phone conversations with potential customers, and then getting them into the product and answering their question. It was not a live demo the way they are today. So that evolved as well. The door didn't work. We didn't think about demos. And then, I read a book one time, and I wished I could read. I'm not a avid reader, but it was really about developing the SaaS sales funnel. It was really basic, but it was great, and it took you through, filling the funnel, working the demo, the follow-up to the demo, and then the light bulb went off, and we started doing demos. And thank God the technology got better with Zoom and products like that, where you could do the demos without having a lot of software issues. So all of that kind of happened together.
So you were doing, so door-to-door evolved to phone calls, which evolved to outbound emails. And you were also doing some paid ads. Was that a significant chunk of what drove leads? Or was that, just something that you tested, it worked here and there?
So probably early in the beginning, it was mostly email instead of paid ads. We had very little budget. We had a young marketing person that was super passionate and focused. And, he was like 23. we did a lot of content early because content was free, right? And so we were doing everything from a content standpoint to get found. And really the paid ads didn't come until year 2, 3. We really started, doing more of that. Paid ads are great. They bring in business, but the customer acquisition on a paid ad it's never been great for us. It's doing a lot of things well, along with the organic, the paid, the outreach, that sort of thing.